common mental disorders can be thought of as a lack of connection with self, and a lack of connection with community. Mental health is a current public crisis. Every day, over 90 Americans are dying due to opiate overdose, and over 20 veterans are dying to suicide. It's important for our health to build connections in many different ways. For example, as a scientist, it's important for me to connect with other scientists from around the world. And last year I was able to do this on a Fulbright Fellowship, where I studied the effects of drugs on brain at the University of Zurich Psychiatric Hospital. Even more important, we need to establish and maintain personal connections. I was also able to do this last year when I married this wonderful woman who also happens to be a neuroscientist. But these are examples of when connection goes right, when we have positive experiences with our community. What happens when the opposite? Highly stressful or traumatic experiences are large predictors for many psychiatric disorders. Experiences such as armed robbery, sexual abuse, child maltreatment, and combat. All of these experiences predict many disorders, not just post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, but common mood, anxiety, personality, and substance use disorders are all linked to these negative experiences. And we've known this for a long time. We've known the relationship between experiences and mental health. But what we didn't understand was the connection. How is it that the things that we experience can then influence our mental health? And that brings me to the new field of neuroepigenetics. And this is one connection in which we have found a molecular mechanism by which our experiences can shape our neurobiology. So what are epigenetics? To explain this, I have to get into the molecular science for a moment. Every cell of your body carries the blueprint for life, your own unique DNA nucleotide sequence. And this sequence codes for what proteins to build, when, and where. But even though every cell of your body is carrying the same code, it's not following the same instructions. Our cells build different proteins. This is why we have different types of cells. We have skin cells and bone cells and blood cells and my favorite, brain cells. They're not following the same code, and this is what epigenetics is. Epigenetics can be thought of as on and off switches or up and down switches for what proteins to build. And what we've learned in the last couple of decades is that traumatic experiences have the capacity to change these epigenetic markers, these up and down switches, on genes implicated in mental health. So this is a molecular mechanism by which our experiences can shape us. Another way of illustrating the difference between genetics and epigenetics is with identical twins. When they're born, they have near identical genomes that they will continue to have for the rest of their life, but they're born already with slightly different epigenetics. And those differences in their epigenetics will only grow with age because we know that many experiences and things in our environment change our epigenetics, such as nutrition, exercise, toxins, stress, drugs. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is really quite a fantastic idea. This shows that our brain has the ability to continuously respond to ever-changing social cues throughout our entire life. Which leads me to wonder, if traumatic experiences can be so powerful as to change our epigenome in a way that changes our physiology and downstream behavior and mental health, is it possible that a profound experience could also be so powerful as to change our epigenome in downstream physiology and perhaps heal mental health? We all have profound experiences throughout life. Experiences such as getting married, welcoming a child into our home, putting our all into a goal and achieving it or not, or a spiritual experience, whether it be of nature or religion. Is it possible that a profound experience, much like a traumatic experience, can come in and alter our epigenome in a way that leads to healing? If this was possible, how would we do it? How could we induce a profound experience in a therapeutic setting? What would it look like? One idea is to use a psychoactive substance, to use our current knowledge of pharmacology and how drugs affect our brain. This wouldn't be so far off from our current mental health treatment paradigms already. We already use a wide variety of drugs to treat many disorders, often on a daily basis. And there happens to be a class of drugs that people have been taking for millennia to purposely induce profound experiences. And many cultures from around the world see this class of drugs as healing medicines. And this is psychedelics. Now, this might seem like a silly proposition at first. These are, in fact, illegal substances right now. They've been a controversial topic ever since the 1960s. But while they are powerful substances and should be regarded cautiously, I'm here to say that they got a bad rap. So what do I mean by psychedelics? What are classic psychedelics? The two most commonly known in North America are LSD, or acid, and magic mushrooms, or psilocybin. Classic psychedelics work on your serotonin system. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter highly implicated in regulating mood and perception. And right now, the most commonly prescribed antidepressants work on your serotonin system. So what is the psychedelic experience like? I'm sitting here telling you that we can induce a profound experience. What does that look like? What does that feel like? To answer this question, let's turn to the research literature. So I'm not talking about recreational use. I'm talking about what is it we find in the science in a controlled setting when these participants have adequate preparation, expectations, and dosing. One of the most commonly known and perhaps misunderstood effects of psychedelics are the sensory alterations. And of course, this is where they get their other term, hallucinogens. Now, while the word hallucinogens is still widely used in the literature, I personally choose not to use it. And that's because the term hallucination has a negative connotation, and it's often used in pairing it with psychosis. And in psychosis, one has lost touch with reality, and they think that the sensory alterations that they're experiencing are real. Now, with psychedelics, one tends to remain in the knowing that what they're experiencing is an effect of the drug they've taken. So, for an example, some common visual alterations one may experience. If this was your reality, if this was the world you were looking at, under the influence of a psychedelic, you might see colors as brighter, luminescent, like light is shining through the colors. You might experience color alterations, so they can look different. The colors might not be real. You can lose visual acuity, so everything you're seeing might be a little bit blurry. You might see geometric patterns and movement coming from whatever it is you're looking at. And more often than not, people report this as visually aesthetic and pleasing and entertaining. This is why I choose not to call them hallucinogens, but psychedelics. That term was coined by a psychiatrist, and it means mind manifesting. Another common reported subjective effect of these drugs is increased insightfulness. Participants report the ability to see a connection between emotions and people and experiences in their life that they were not able to see before. They report feeling a wide variety of emotions, and even the harder emotions like sadness, fear, and anxiety, they later report that it was beneficial to experience them and they learned something from them. Unity. People report feeling connected to all of humankind. Through time and space, race and religion, nation and border, people feel connected. Recent research from Johns Hopkins University showed that in a controlled setting with healthy participants, when given a moderate or high dose of psilocybin, 78% of them reported it to be among the top 5 experiences of their life. And a year later, 94% of them still agreed, top 5 experience in my whole life. They also reported increased life satisfaction, well-being, and openness to experiencing life. Now, I'm not saying to go home and take a psychedelic this weekend. Don't say that, don't think that. We're just looking at what the evidence is showing us about the potential about this class of drugs when they are taken correctly. But the research hasn't only been done with healthy participants. By 1965, before this class of drugs was illegal, over 1,000 published clinical studies in over 40,000 participants suggested beneficial effects of psychedelic-assisted therapy for common psychiatric disorders. Now, since the 60s, our regulatory and research methods expectations have changed when it comes to clinical drug trials. But recently, 3 top research universities in the States have published phase 2 clinical trials using psilocybin-assisted therapy to treat depression and anxiety related to cancer. So they're not treating cancer, they're treating the depression and anxiety related to the cancer experience. All 3 studies, all participants, show decreased depression and anxiety 6 months after their treatment. This breaks our current mental health paradigm. We currently do not have a single FDA-approved antidepressant that has rapid or long-term effects. So I remind you the power of experiences in our mental health. We have recently discovered that our experiences have the ability to change us at the molecular level. And I wonder, is it possible that the experience of psychedelic-assisted therapy can be healing us at a molecular level? Is it possible that the long-term behavioral effects and the long-term symptom reduction that we're seeing after psychedelic-assisted therapy could be happening at the molecular epigenetic level? I don't know the answer to this yet. This is what I hope to find out in my research over the next couple of years. Now, I know I've talked about a lot today, but if you can remember one thing from my talk, it's this. As a society, if we choose to harness the power of the connection between our experiences and our neurobiology, we may be able to bring in a new era of mental health. Thank you.